horses. Good day to you, partner. I'm Guy, and I can already tell that I'll be your best friend in this forsaken camp.
Hey guys, Wheat Solo here, aka the Asian King. Well, it actually sounded better than I thought it would. Okay, so I'm going to try to give you as much information as I can about Shadow Warrior and Assassin next season. This is not a class I main. In general, Assassin is a very complicated class. Maybe the most complicated in PD2. You actually have to deal with weapon damage and jewels and things like that, depending on your build. But as you know, we're going to go down the summon side of things, but weapon damage could come up. I'll go into it slightly at the end. So some of these values have been changed in PD2, but this just gives you an idea. For instance, I believe Strength and Dex is now 10 times skill level, and for anyone out there thinking, oh, I'm so excited, I'm going to make Shadow Warriors kick, it doesn't seem to work right according to Bubbles. Maybe I'll try and look at that at some point. There's a lot of things I'd like to try to look at with Shadow Warriors, with dummies and things like that. The big one is this. This is one of the reasons they're so tanky. 40% flat PDR all of the time. Should that be nerfed? Probably at some point. that's kind of nuts. It doesn't even make sense. And they can very easily hit the cap, as we'll get into. Just so you know, they do not get Claw Mastery or Weapon Block, so don't be excited about that. If anybody wants to read, this has a bunch of useful information, okay? Things that they gain benefits from, things that they don't, their attack frames and things like that. Now in PD2, this has been changed to a 10-frame delay. For anyone who doesn't know, there's something called idle, and that means every single, actually even enemy mobs, but they still have 15-frame delay, I believe. But summons have a 10-frame idle. So that means every time they take an action, they have 10 frames of nothing, and then they can take an action. So they don't have, let's say they have 0 IAS. They're not attacking every 14 frames, they're attacking every 24 frames. If you have 65 IAS, they're attacking every 18 frames. So what does that mean? It means IAS is good, it's just not as good as it normally would be because of that 10-frame idle. But still, that's a 6-frame difference, and I definitely would recommend trying to go for it. It's very easy to do, as we're going to find out. I don't think there's anything else I really want to talk about from this. And just so you know, no summon in the game can be immune anymore. All summons are capped at 90% res for fire, lightning, cold, and poison. Okay, moving on. Some information Topwa gave me. This is very interesting. Basically, Shadow Warriors also gain max res. This is really important because it basically means Fade is a little less important than it normally would be, which means Burst of Speed is relatively better, especially because IAS is good. Now again, since they have Idle, it's relatively worse again, but just keep that in mind. Although Fade is good, they should be hitting these res values very easily on their own. And it's, again, this is the reason they're so tanky. It's quite nuts. Again, flat 40 PDR. This is some information that I took from Assassin Chat. These are all the effects that work with Blade Sentinel. And we're actually going to be talking about Blade Sentinel quite a bit. And basically, it does get physical pierce. But what's weird is we even benefit from Poison Pierce. Now, I might make a video on this, but I've done some testing, so has TDL, Bubbles, Topwig, and a few other Assassin players, and we're all in agreement that the Blade Sentinel benefits from Poison Pierce, and this also applies to the Shadow Warrior. And I think it makes sense to me. Basically, traps don't get pierce. Blade Sentinel is a trap, but Blade Sentinel was allowed to keep its physical pierce in PD2. They probably made a mistake, and it still benefits from Poison Pierce. I would assume it benefits from Fire, Cold, and Lightning Pierce as well, and it's just something they didn't think was going to be a big deal. But with Venom, it will be a big deal. And these are all the things Blade Sentinel gets. So like for instance, if you're going to make a Blade Sentinel Sin, it doesn't look like Crushing Blow is something you should look for, but Crit Deadly Strike is very, very, very good. Okay, anything else? No. Let's move on. Okay, so now Burst of Speed. This is something I wanted to touch on real quickly, is If the Shadow Warrior gets skill levels based on this, which is my skill level divided by 2, that's soft points, okay? So let's say I have 1 point into Burst of Speed, and I have plus 9 soft points. I'm at 10. That means we get 5. And the Shadow Warrior, their skill level, let's say it's 20, and I have plus 10 again, so 30, 10. Okay? Does that make sense, everybody? We're doing 1 point with 9 soft, then we're doing 20 with 10 soft. So that's going to be 5 plus 10. They have skill level 15. Very easy to get that. And how the Shadow Warrior works is their skills are always hard points. They don't have a difference between hard and soft. That's just not how they're operating. Maybe if they have gear on that grants plus skills, they would actually be considered soft. Not sure about that. I don't check their gear very often. But that means we already have a juicy level 15 Burst of Speed. So when they cast Burst of Speed, they get attack speed bonus of 50%. So when we go back to this screen here, what does 50% give us? Second to last breakpoint. That means we're already saving 5 frames on every single attack. That is why Burst of Speed is so useful, and you don't even need to sink extra points into it. Okay, guys? Is there anything else? Fade, just to go into real quickly, the reason why it would still be useful is it's very easy to get them to have, well, not easy, but it wouldn't be hard based on how their skill levels work. If you just get it to their skill level being 30, so let's say you give them like 8 from yourself, level 16, and then like their skill level is 40, which will be 20, 28. Like you're already at 49 PDR. And if you're ever having to deal with a fight that has lower resist, any sort of conviction aura, etc., again, you get this all resistance bonus. So Fade is something to still keep in mind for your Shadow Warrior. And by the way, here are some of the life values. I'm not sure if these are correct, but you can always come to the PD2 wiki. It's usually updated. Sometimes it's wrong, even if it was updated. But again, like there are resources out there, and I highly recommend Amazon Basin almost all the time. So now we're going to go to a little bit of items. I know this is what a lot of people wanted. For leveling, I'm not going to go into leveling too much. Just throw gear on, okay, guys? But in general, I would focus on SCR and plus skills because the way I would play the build is I would always be using Enigma for Blink. Now, if you don't want to use Enigma for Blink, you could go with defense. Or you could go with IAS. Some people actually like to weave in their own attacks. Now this depends. Are you going to go with a trap variant? Just remember, traps are going to be using your IAS. Or are you going to use a casting variant like Mind Blast? Then that would be FCR. Blade Sentinel would also be IAS. So just keep that in mind when you're deciding your summon sin, is whether you're going to be using IAS or FCR and plan appropriately. And also remember, if you're not going to actually attack, then just go for plus skills, and Arachnid Mesh is an easy way to do that. Now, crafts are really important. The reason why is, I think amulets are pretty overrated for the assassin, rings kind of as well, and there's 2 I'd like to highlight real quickly. Instead of wasting money, I'm not saying BKs are bad, plus skills are bad. I just said go for plus skills. You should do that eventually. But early on, just go ahead and make 2 of these diamond rings. I'm not saying it's cheap. It is expensive. You need 2 hell runes, but you'll get those pretty quickly. And guess what? You have CBF. Done. Done and dusted. And then make a diamond amulet. Costs a Tal rune and 1p diamond. Resistances, attributes, easy money. There's a lot of other good crafts. Of course, crafts can be very good for assassins with gloves and other items. So go ahead and take an eye out on all of these. There's a ton of good crafts here. Crafting is very fun in PD2, and it's very accessible these days with the way the crafting window works. You don't have to worry about mats cluttering your stash. They're all going to be in their own little window, and you're never going to have too many of them. So again, rings to look out for. Ravenfrost, always good. CBF, in case you ever need it. The reason I have a Bolkathos highlighted is because the life stolen per hit. I highly recommend getting 1 point on Blade Shield on every single one of your Summon Sin builds, just because, especially if you're playing a passive version where you're just going to be blinking and kicking, then you really want this life stolen per hit. With Blade Shield, it'll just keep you from slamming pots all the time. Another cute idea is, hey, guess what? You can get a Heart of Wolverine out, try to buff your Blade Sentinel a little bit more. That's kind of a nice idea. Still gives you +1 skill. Of course, we've got the Constriction Ring for FCR. Again, if you're playing passive and you're just blinking and kicking, you're going to want FCR and IES for the kick. For gloves, I think gloves are actually the least important one because gloves are going to be something you could just shop magic ones for from, what's her name? Anya? Anya. And you could easily find yourself +3 Shadow Discipline gloves, +3 Trap gloves with 20 IAS, 20 SCR, 20 Strength, etc., blah, 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 blah. Those are basically going to be BIS, but I just wanted to include a couple of items up here. One, Soul Trainers, just because this gives -5 to enemy physical resistance, and as we know, Blade Sentinel does work with physical pierce. Would I say this is going to be BIS? No, I'm just saying it's kind of cute that this exists. It also has -monster defense, and Blade Sentinel can be played in 2 ways. It can play with poison or physical, so there are a couple of gloves to keep in mind. Another one is, I highly recommend leveling as Venom. If you do, and you don't want to shop for a glove, and you happen to come across a Venom grip, well, guess what? There's poison skill damage. Very nice, because Venom has very, very, very high numbers. Now, here's a set. I don't think you should try to buy this, but nat sets are usually pretty cheap, and so if you happen to come across it, it's fine. It's going to give you a bunch of things. It'll make everything very easy to do, resistance, PDR, etc., some skills, and guess what? Hey, you do get an additional shadow. So let's say you're playing the game and you have your Whispering Mirage, but you're only able to get 1 so far, but you happen to come across a nat set. Well, guess what? You can equip 1 mark, the soul, the shadow, and the totem with one of your mirages, and you still can play with 3 Shadow Warriors. Very, very, very cool, guys. By the way, these are usually pretty cheap, even on reset. Summonson might be more popular next season, but I doubt the price is going to be very high. This is going to be your most important item, so I'd spend all of your early currency on trying to get your Whispering Mirages. Again, there's other things you could be doing in the meantime, and we'll go into that real quickly. But first, for the finished build, this is just a classic item, especially if anyone's interested in bossing, has IES plus skills. Let's say you don't want to actually attack, then you could just go with Shaco, etc. You can get a circlet for plus skills, but again, these other helms do exist, and there's other helms that might work for the physical variant. I don't know enough to talk about it, and which would be the best one there. Here's some claw rune words. Always keep in mind there's pattern, very cheap to make, gives you plus mana after each kill. So if you happen to want to play Mind Blast early on, which is a completely valid strategy, all you need is a 3-socket claw, throw a tall or interior in it, you get some mana after each kill, and some good stats. The nice thing is, if there's a tier rune, doesn't tier also give you mana after each kill? So you'd get more mana after each kill, plus this? I think that's true. And you could also find a pattern with +3 to Mind Blast on it. So all of a sudden you're looking at this, so oh, it's not that good with solo, just give you plus skills. Well, they give you +3 Shadow Warrior and +3 Mind Blast. So already, that's pretty nice. Does this work with other skills? Sure. It would be just nice to have. You're just playing traps, you're playing Blade Scent, still gives you some enhanced damage, super cheap to make, don't forget about it, okay? Is there anything else nice? I was kind of going through it. Nothing really stood out. I think black is always nice. I'm not saying you should make it for this build. Just keep it in mind. Cheap rune word. Put it on a merc. This is kind of cute. Crescent Moon can be made in claws. Again, I'm suggesting you get Blade Shield. So maybe there's something here. It exists. By the way, it does not say Venom can be made in claws, but oh, it's just 3-socket weapons. There you go. This is a big deal because Venom -30 poison resistance, as we now know. Hey, Blade Sentinel benefits from Poison Pierce, so if you have 2 Venoms on, now again, you only have 1 Shadow Warrior, but if you had 2 Venoms on, a lot of assassins are talking about that could be one of the best early bosses, bossing builds, is having 2 Venoms, a Shadow Warrior, Blade Scent, and Venom. Very, very nice, very cheap rune word. If you wanted to continue that into the end game, you'd be looking at making a, what's the name of it? Oh, also keep in mind Wrath. This is very good if you want to play Mind Blast. It gives you a 6% chance to cast level 31 amplified damage on striking. You go ahead and throw that on an Act 1 Merc. Very nice. I'm not the biggest fan of Act 1 Merc or Wrath, but that does exist. I like stomping, and so I always go Act 3 Merc, which just means you're going to make your dual dream setup, which is not very expensive, and Wrath is actually pretty pricey. But the other item I was looking for was... Why can't I find it? Oh, this is going to piss me off now. I guess it's more expensive than I realize. It's the one that has the aura on it. Wow, maybe it really is that expensive. Oh, Plague. There we go. Oh, it's not that expensive. It's just a sham room. Okay. Plague is very nice. So if you're playing a poison-based build, this is always something you could work towards in the end game. Cleansing is good. A little bit of Pierce, a little bit of skills. Very nice. Usually less damage than Venom, but more quality of life, which is always a good thing. Of course, Enigma, guys, is the rune word I would always suggest running on this build. And for boots, very simple. There's a boot. That gives you +2 to Shadow Disciplines, which is going to be BIS on basically all of these builds, unless you're trying to do something wonky like some sort of kick variant or something like that. Now, for the skill planning purposes, let's say you want to do what Topwig is going to do during reset, and what I think is a very good option, and I might do. You're basically going to go, you're going to get all these skills, because you have to anyways. Well, not that one. And you got to get that one, and you're going to get Dragonflight at some point. But eventually, you're going to be getting Cobra Strike. You're going to max that out. You're going to get Shadow Warrior. You're going to max that out too. You're also going to max out Venom, Shadow Warrior, and those are your key skills. Oh, yeah, and Blade Sentinel. Now, you only need 1 point Blade Sentinel for the Venom variant of this build. Trust me on that. You don't need more points there. So let's say you're going into in-game, you have these extra skills. Oh yeah, you want to get your Dragon Kick. Now you have 2 versions of Blink when you get Enigma. What do you do with these extra points? Well, I think would be very cute is, guess what? You have enough points to max out. Oh, I got to do, sorry, quest completed. There we go. You have enough points to easily max out Death Sentry as well and get some nice quality of life when it comes to clearing mobs. Because I did play Blade Scent a bit, and although I believe it does a lot of damage compared to the other Mind Blast or Trap variant Summon Sins, it does have a little bit of issues when it comes to full clearing, and I think Death Sentry really eases that up. Now let's say you don't want to play the Venom variant, which by the way is insane budget. Venom does nutty damage early on, and Blade Sentinel is very, very good. Well, you get rid of all these, get rid of that, and probably the easiest way to do it then is you would go ahead and make your Shadow Warrior. You would get Mind Blast. You could actually just start getting Psychic Hammer early because it's going to be a synergy anyways. You're going to max out Cloak of Shadows. Of course, you're still going to get Dragonflight. You don't get Venom. You do get 1 point Fade. And then you still have a ton of skill points left to play with. You're going to get your 1 point Blade Shield, of course. And then you could maybe even do 1 point Death Sentry. I actually did play this version of the build. I didn't feel like Death Sentry was necessary, but I didn't play it long enough to know for sure. And at this point, you don't really know what to do with your points. You could basically just put some points into Fade, Burst of Speed, or Claw and Dagger Mastery for yourself. But that wouldn't do anything. Maybe some Weapon Block. I heard somebody talking about that. That's always nice. But what I think would be way more fun than playing that lame version of the build is Shockweb. And if you go Shockweb, you do want Death Sentry. You can also max Fire Blast because it's a synergy for Death Sentry. It's also a synergy for Shockweb. Wait, shouldn't it be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Am I crazy? Maybe it says on the actual PD2, but it doesn't say here. Whoa. Oh, it actually lists Death Sentry. I'm not sure if that's correct. I thought Death Sentry actually wasn't it. I think this might be wrong here. Let me actually go to this real quickly. It also could be that the skill isn't reading properly in the game. Yeah, Fire Blast. Not, okay, yeah, so this actually Portal Planner is a bit wrong. Fire Blast is a synergy, not Death Sentry. But the reason why this version of the build works is because you can still max Death Sentry. You still have some points left over. You're only level 86. And you have everything you need. You have your Shadow Warriors maxed out. You have a very powerful Shockweb, which is going to be one of your skills. And then Death Sentry for clearing. And you could actually switch between either one of these skills as you wanted. But the gear on your Merc is going to be very different. If you're playing this version of the build, Fire Blast, you need Infinity. If you're playing this version of the build, obviously you want Act 3 Merc. And it could be any setup you like there. Some of the other Mercs you should keep your eye on. If you're playing Mind Blast, Act 4 Mercenary comes with a free Amplified Damage. It's always nice to have Vigor early. I was always thinking maybe there's something you could do with Blade Shield and Shadow Warriors, but it doesn't seem like you can get enough weapon damage. But again, maybe there's something there. And of course, there's the Fizz variant of Blade Sentinel, which is a little bit beyond my knowledge to talk about right now. But basically, instead of going for plus skills and venom and pierce, you would just be getting weapon damage, but you would still use, obviously, 2 of your Whispering Mirages. I think that's everything I wanted to cover here, and I hope this helps any Summon Sins next season have a little more fun. Skelly King out, guys. GG.
Come and play with us, Daddy.